Here in New York City, the army now patrols the streets, guarding the still smoking ruins of the World Trade Center towers. Deep in the rubble, thousands of the dead still lie buried, 2 months after the terrorist attack. Somewhere here too lie the remains of the hijackers, who chose to die in carrying out their murderous mission, for reasons that even those who were close to the man held to be their ringleader struggle to comprehend.
Mohamed was a very peaceful person, searching for justice.
He was a very nice person, really. This is Mohamed what I knew.
The Mohamed he knew is Mohamed Atta, captured here by a security video camera taking a connecting flight to board the first plane that slammed into the side of the World Trade Center.
The thing that struck me was that he was he had a terribly set expression on his face, totally unemotionless, cold eyes.
Did I have an impression that he was a terrorist or to become terrorist? Of course not. Because if that was the case, as I have stated all over the work, I would kill him with my own bare hands. But he was just an asshole first class.
In younger days, Mohamed Atta was a university student. To those who met him then, a normal, intelligent young man.
The question of how an individual who is normal can carry out an act of inexplicable evil to the rest of us is the question of the moment.
It's him, but there's many others as well. We've had for the first time a collective act of suicide, of terrorism. We've had for the first time people engineering their own death. We've had something very frightening when it comes to this.
Tonight on Four Corners, we follow the life of Mohamed Atta, from the beginning in Egypt to the end in New York, seeking out from those who knew him best what lay behind his deliberate decision to embark on a mission to die for. Mohamed Atta was born 33 years ago in a small village in northern Egypt. But his family moved here to the Cairo suburb of Abdeen when he was 10. His father was a lawyer, and his mother, who doted on her only son, was also an educated woman. Once a wealthy, elegant area, the suburb has long been in decline. Over the past 20 years, people here have seen their living standards plummet, their neighbourhood slump into shabby disrepair.
This house here, this entrance here? Yeah. Number 14. Right.
Mohamed Atta's neighbour showed us the flat where his family lived.
Up here, yeah? The blue shutters up there, or? Yeah, the blue shutters.
Mohamed had 2 sisters, both university educated as well.
One graduated from science, Faculty of Science, and the other actually she's a doctor. She's a doctor.
Arabi runs a car repair shop around the corner and lived downstairs from Mohamed Atta's family for 13 years. They moved away in 1991. The family, he says, was not particularly religious. His sisters didn't wear the veil.
زائد كمان ليس لديه محجبات أو منقبات رغم إنهم عندهم بنتين وأم وهم من أعلى مستوى الأخلاق الأدب مش يعني أخلاق.
Arabi said that the Attas didn't mix much with their neighbours, and Mohamed never brought friends home from school.
ما بيديكش حق الحرية في مصر. ما لم يصادق أي مخلوق سوى وقت المدرسة فقط ولم يدخل بيته أي تلميذ على مستوى التعليم كله ولم يذهب يذاكر عند أي تلميذ آخر بأن حدود الصداقة لا تتعدى 100 متر ويعود إلى البيت مرة أخرى.
While we were chatting, some other neighbours gathered around. They were angry with the amount of attention being given to the attack on September the 11th.
You ask about Mohamed Atta. I want to tell you something. Did you went to Israel and photo the soldiers of Israel who killed the Palestinians, the children of Palestinians? Did you photo him?
Well, the media have covered that story, yes. They have been
How?
there. The ABC has done that story, yes.
No, the Israelis kill the children of Palestinians every day. Every day. What happened in America? Two buildings bombed. Okay? America, what does the American do? They want to hit all the world. All the world is American. For what? For two buildings.
But did you know the family here yourself?
I know them.
So you know the family, Mohamed Atta?
Yeah. I live here.
And his dad, you knew them, yes?
Yeah, I know him.
Did you ever think that he might do something like this?
No one can tell you about him anything.
Why is that?
He was a normal one.
A normal boy?
Normal boy. Like any Egyptian.
Like any Egyptian boy?
Well,
but he did something that no other Egyptian boy has done.
You are sure? You are sure that he did that?
Do you believe he did?
I don't believe.
Our translator, Hanadi, and I met up with one of Atta's schoolmates in a cafe nearby. He recalls him as a studious teenager with no really close friends and not interested in girls.
ولا كان يعني بيفكر في احنا كنا نفكر في حاجه برضه هو لا هو كان يعني اقول لك ايه كان بيجي المدرسه يطلع البيت مذاكره والمدرسه وبس ده اللي كان هو شخصيته كده طبعا والدليل على كده اللي كنا بنشوفه في الفصل يعني كان بيناقش الاستاذ في الماده اللي هو بيشرحها بعد الدرس يناقشه احنا نصدق الجرس بيضرب نطلع انما هو كان همه الاول والاخير انه ينجح ويبقى من الاوائل.
ممكن بس هنادي الامام اللي اتكلمت معاه.
When we approached Mohamed Atta's father, he was angry and fed up with the media. He said he'd only talk if we paid $25,000 to the Palestinian Intifada. Without that, if we continued filming, he'd break the camera. He insists that his son was not involved in the terrorist attack and has told the media he believes the Israeli intelligence agency Mossad was behind it. The week we arrived in Cairo was the same week the United States commenced the bombing of Afghanistan. At the Al-Hazar Mosque, the Friday prayers go quietly. But at the end, the anger erupts.
This is the only way to express our feelings towards what's going on all over the world. It is a war against Islam, and Bush expressed that when he said it's going to be a new crusade. It is a war against Islam.
Inside, the crowd is being addressed by members of the Muslim Brotherhood, the oldest and largest Islamist group in Egypt. The banner reads, Osama bin Laden protects the weak. The Muslim Brothers have a history of terrorism, but in recent decades they have consistently denounced the use of violence. They remain a potent force in the revival of Islamic activism, and for that the organisation has been banned. But individual Muslim brothers, like Issam El-Arian, can speak their mind up to a point.
The message is stop this war. President Bush, stop this crazy war. That is the main message.
But your government supports this war.
No, it is under pressure. Our governments and Arab governments and Islamic governments are under American pressure.
Back in the 1980s and early 1990s, the Muslim Brothers made a major push into the universities. One of their strongholds was the engineering faculty of Cairo University. In 1985, Mohamed Atta enrolled as a student.
And so Mohamed Atta grew up in an environment on the campus, Cairo University, where the Islamic activists really held sway in political organizations. And no doubt much of his political maturation occurred during that time.
Mohamed Atta's classmates remember him arriving at Cairo University, naive and keen, to study architecture in the Faculty of Engineering. There was no hint of the radical politics that would lead him to become a man who would kill and die for Islam. Do you remember the first time that you met him?
The first time was the first day of the university. And he was excited. We were very pleasant because we entered our dream university and our dream faculty of Engineering, the top-ranked faculty here. Cairo University is the top-ranked university here in Egypt. He were excited. That's it. By the way, Mohammed, I remember him completely in a form of child. He has a child feelings, innocent, virgin, smiling and laughing, and he likes life. He is a very, he is a very delicate person. Sorry, I'm going to cry about him. He was a very nice person, really. This is Muhammad, what I knew.
And this is Mohammed
This is
here,
Mohammed,
yes. And
yes.
how old will you be here?
21.
21, yeah.
Yes. You can see this one.
Walid Hairi was also an architecture student. He was the photographer in their group. This is a class photo,
when
is
we
it?
arrived to Cairo, he's Muhammad.
Mohamed Atta was not a close friend.
محمد انا ما اعتقدش ان كان ليه مجموعه قريبين من بعض قوي، بس هو احنا كمجموعات كان بيبقى في احيانا بين المجموعات وبعضها زعل او حساسيات او حاجه. هو كان صديق للكل.
Mohammed joined in when the group had parties, this one a fancy dress. Everyone came as a prisoner with numbers on their chests. Mohammed was religious, but no more than others in the class.
He were praying with us, keeping to pray in Friday as normal, as any other person.
Atta was a good, hard-working student, but not outstanding. His colleagues say they are all far too busy studying to get involved in the Islamist revival that surrounded them at the time. Many of those who were have since been arrested. So you heard about it, but you didn't want to be part of it? Or?
Just heard it. I remember we saw demonstration moving from the university. And all what we did, that we moved to the windows here and we sit for a few minutes to watch, only watch. We were completely being under pressure from duties, tasks, homeworks.
We have go to a lot of trips with each other.
At the end of their degrees, the students went on field trips together. But once they graduated in 1990, his former classmates saw little of Mohammed. They were impressed to hear in 1992 that he was going to study in Germany.
Islamic sites
Well, good. Bravo. Any chance for any person all over the world, if there is any chance to develop his career, to develop his academic background, I should shake his hand and say bravo.
Well, Mohamed Atta did very well for himself, as a matter of fact. He was a high-performing student. He was given a scholarship. He was able to study in Germany. This is the dream of so many young Egyptians. There are so many talented ones for whom this dream is only that, and he realized it.
Mohamed Atta left Cairo in 1992, aged 24. He would never return here to live. Something would radically change him in Hamburg. It's the beginning of the new semester at the Technical University of Hamburg. The university has organised a function to welcome the latest batch of foreign students to the campus. 1 in 4 of their students come from overseas. The university is hoping that September the 11th will not make a dent in their enrolments, because this is the university where Mohamed Atta came to study urban planning in the engineering faculty.
He was, in a simple way, a very normal foreign student. But the special thing was he was very polite, very interested, very intellectual. He argumented very well, and he was interested in all things. And the difference to other students from foreign countries, to other Muslim students, was that he was very religious. He prayed as it is necessary, and he interrupted discussion to pray in a corner. And this was, let me say, the only special thing. He was a normal student, smiling sometimes, not laughing very much, was somewhat serious.
It was a strange world for him, a strange language, strange daily life for a religious-orientated person.
Volker Haut is a Christian. He's one of the very few German students who got to know Mohamed Atta well. They met in 1993 and kept in touch over the next 3 years.
Did you feel close to him?
Yes.
What do you think was the bond? What was it that made you feel close to him?
My religious orientation is not as strict as his orientation, his religious orientation was. But I think the interest in religious ideas, my interest in religious ideas, was some kind of bridge to his religious opinions and to his religious practice.
While Mohamed was interested in his studies, there was little of what Hamburg had to offer outside the university that had much appeal. His lifestyle was austere.
I think freedom and the possibility to tell your opinion openly was of great interest for him, or was of big interest for him. But all these goods of the Western world, like you told me, cars, girls, motorcycles, or things like that, he was not interested in.
Television, movies?
I don't know if he had a TV set. No, I don't think so. And I don't remember him going to the movies.
Ever?
I can't remember.
Music?
Music is specific. I asked him about music because I like listening to music and I like playing music. And he told me for Muslims it's not allowed to listen to music because music may have the same sense like drugs.
Hamburg is a city that displays all the freedoms the West has to offer right in your face.
I think when an individual such as Mohamed Atta goes to the West, he's a fish out of sea to some extent. He's surrounded by secularism. He lived in Hamburg, the famous Reeperbahn, the prostitute district of Hamburg, very close to the technical university there. So he saw all of the licentiousness of the West, and very commonly this experience causes young Muslim men to become much more traditional, much more fundamentalist, and so I expect that in his case it did the same.
Ralph Bodenstein met up with Mohamed Atta and Volker Hout in 1994. He now lives in Beirut. They'd all chosen to specialise in the problems of urban planning in developing countries and took a 3-month trip together back to Atta's hometown of Cairo in 1995. It was clear that Mohammed had changed since the days when he accepted that his own sister did not wear the hijab. He could now see even women who wore the veil as immodest.
What happened was that you would see like young women or women wearing a hijab, and Volker and me, for instance, we would realize like it's looking good actually how they do it. It's nice actually. It makes them beautiful. And then he was like saying or he would like criticize them because he was saying they would not wear this hijab properly because they would choose certain colors which were too chic, and they would like wear it or wind it in a way around their head that it was that it would make them even more attractive, and so that was not the way it was supposed to be.
Atta and his 2 German student colleagues had come to write a report assessing the renovation work on the old city gates of Cairo. The government plans involved clearing out rundown houses and factories where poor people lived and worked. Atta had a passionate interest in the preservation of Islamic sites, but in a way that took account of the social issues involved.
There are many poor people in Egypt, especially in Cairo, and he was interested in finding ways to give them a better life, or to organize the city and the space in a way, and also the social structure in a way that these people would do better, actually.
And how did he feel that the government was dealing with those issues?
Well, the government was dealing it in terms of self-interest. I mean, the government was dealing it in terms of profit, which was actually the state profit in tourism, which was very important.
The political climate in the 1990s was tense. Islamist groups had been providing social services to the poor and making good political ground by doing so. The government reacted with mass arrests, seeing their growing strength as a threat. There are still around 15,000 Islamic activists in Egyptian jails. Some are extremists, most are not. Mohammed told his friends that he feared if he returned to Cairo, he too would be criminalised.
He told me about the daily practice of the government to criminalise people of opposite opinions. Egyptian, and especially the Egyptian president Mubarak, tries to give the impression that Egyptian is a democracy, is a free, democratic country in the Western sense of democracy and freedom. But Mohammed told me that it was not possible to give or to tell open oppositional opinions.
Mohammed felt that in any event, his prospects for work as a city planner were bleak. The economy is too weak to employ all the graduates flooding the job market, and cronyism is rife.
He still wished and hoped that he might find such a work in Cairo, but he was sceptical about it several times. So about the possibilities of really changing things in Egypt and finding a good and sensible work there.
Because of?
Well, because of like if you are critical of certain persons or certain political circumstances, or if you do not know this and that person, you will never get this sort of job.
Neither Ralph nor Volker say that Mohamed was specifically hostile to America, but he did resent the cultural and political dominance of the West and the threat that posed to Islam.
Do you think that he resented the way that Western culture, for the most part, does not understand Islam?
Yeah, I mean, he was very explicit about that. I mean, they deliberately did not want to understand.
We spoke about that, yes. The industrial nations do not only export cars or tanks or things like that. They do not only export rubbish, they also export their way of living. And it's quite opposite to the traditional way of living in an Islamic country or in an Arab country.
What made him most passionate?
Well, by that time I remember there were two things I remember made him passionate. One was actually the ongoing war in Yugoslavia, the Bosnian War especially, which he considered a war actually of one population against the Muslim part of the population, and he didn't understand why there was no help by the so-called international community to prevent this murdering from going on. And this he was always linking to actually the war going on, or the process going on in Israel and Palestine, which he was very critical of.
At the end of the project, the three students returned to Hamburg to write up their report. It was regarded as excellent. After this, they drifted apart. The last time Ralph or Volker saw Mohamed, it was in the street sometime in 1996, 1997. But Mohamed Atta would soon acquire two new friends, Marwan el-Shehi and Ziad Jarrah. Marwan el-Shehi is believed to have piloted United Airlines Flight 175, the second plane to crash into the World Trade Center. Ziad Jarrah was on the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania. The three young men shared a flat in a suburb favoured by Turkish migrants. The local shopkeeper noticed them because they were almost always together and because of their clothes. Atta had abandoned his Western style of dress.
Sie sind hier vorbeigegangen in ihrer komischen Kluft, wo sie aufgefallen sind. Die haben so, der eine in weiß, so einen weißen Kaftan und eine weiße Pluderhose und zwei jeweils in schwarz gekleidet.
Their neighbours at number 54, Marienstrasse, say the men were polite but distant and had a lot of visitors to the flat. They'd see the shoes stacked up outside the door.
Und es war auch immer sehr viel männlicher Besuch da, niemals weiblicher Besuch da gewesen. Also ist sehr viel Besuch auch gekommen. Ja, so am Tag mindestens 4, 5 Leute auch an Besuch gekommen.
That was sent to us by the FBI.
The German police are focusing on people who've been at the Marienstrasse flat.
Because we think that Marienstrasse is a very central point in the whole thing. We want to, of course, we want to talk to the people who have been there before.
So that flat is seen as, in a sense, the base of the terrorist cell?
Yeah.
So anybody who stayed at that flat for any period of time over the relevant years is regarded as great interest?
Yeah. We fear that it might have been the base for the terrorist attacks itself, but we can only know when the investigation stopped.
Throughout this period, Mohamed Atta remained enrolled at the university. But from the middle of 1997 to late 1998, he was nowhere to be seen. Intelligence sources are reported as saying they have evidence that this is when he went to Afghanistan for training with Osama bin Laden.
And when he came back, as well as I remember, he had changed. He had a beard, not this long beard as they had the Taliban, or you see, no, as they wrote in the newspapers. No, he had a very, very careful shaved beard like that. Those are the theses.
Mohamed Atta came back to write his diploma thesis on the Syrian town of Aleppo. Its theme was close to his heart: how to preserve the Islamic character of cities in the face of modernization.
You see, here you have the old map, the old...
Professor Mahula was impressed and marked the thesis highly. For his oral examination, he gave Mohamed Atta the top possible mark. The professor had by then known Atta for 7 years and could see that he'd changed.
He was looking back very, very serious. He didn't smile as well as I remember. And he was working hard, very, very hard, and made his master's thesis very quick, consequently, and I was glad on that. To see this picture.
The professor remembers there was a final embarrassing moment when Atta finished the course in November 1999.
I went to him and said, "Hello, Mohammed, I'm glad, congratulations. You are a diploma engineer, you have finished." And the colleague of mine, lady, wanted to shake hands too. But Mohammed refused. "No, please understand me. No, like this." And she did not know something, that somebody wouldn't shake hands with the women.
It was now time for Mohamed Atta to leave Hamburg behind. Before he left, he had already written his will. It was witnessed by 2 men who went to Friday prayers at the same small mosque as Mohamed Atta, tucked away in one of the seedier areas of Hamburg. It's one of the few mosques where the prayers are conducted in Arabic. The will has been translated by the FBI and includes the following instructions. I do not want a pregnant woman or a person who is not clean to come and say goodbye to me. I do not want any woman to go to my grave at all during my funeral or any occasion thereafter.
In extremely orthodox Islam, even the touch of a woman's hand is judged to be impure and to defile the pure Islamic male. Selecting these verses, which seem to...
Dr. Gerald Post is a psychiatrist and a world-ranking authority on the personality of terrorists. He's a consultant to the FBI.
Not immoral. Everything he gives voice to is described and prescribed in the Quran on the one hand, but the emphasis does suggest an almost purer than the pure aspect about him.
On June the 3rd, 2000, Mohamed Atta entered the United States, travelling as a tourist. He was not on any security list. He surfaced in the southwest of Florida, in the seaside town of Venice. His 2 friends from Hamburg, Marwan al-Shehi and Ziad Jarrah, joined him. They were here for a purpose. Florida is known internationally as the cheapest place in the world to learn to fly. There are numerous aviation schools catering for foreign students. Within 6 weeks, Mohamed Atta and Marwan al-Shehi had enrolled at Huffman Aviation. Atta had shaved off his beard.
In the 5 months they were here, they were absolutely low profile. They clothed themselves like we all do, jeans and sneakers. There was nothing else. My personal feeling was Atta was an asshole first class. And al-Shehi was a very nice, likable person. He had fun, he was laughing, he took the jokes we were talking about. This is a male environmental, so we talk about girls, planes, but Atta was never socializing. They finished, yeah. He changed.
Rudy Deckers is the owner of Huffman Aviation. Dan Purcell was his chief flight instructor at the time. Both Atta and al-Shehi spent over 250 hours in the air over the next 5 months, flying almost daily. Atta had already clocked up some hours at another flying school.
He was an average pilot at the onset. He improved greatly. I don't have the records because they've been seized, but his progress went on, and he became a pretty good aviator. Mr. Al-Shehi did the same. We pride ourselves here on turning out pilots that are ready to go to work.
Anne Greaves flew the same plane as Mohamed Atta. She was fulfilling a lifelong dream, learning to fly. Every day for 3 months, she'd pass over the logbooks on the tarmac.
When you came down from a flying lesson, you'd be excited, you want to share some information, etc. You never had that feeling with Mohamed Atta, definitely not. Because I can see him striding towards me, towards the aircraft. And the thing that struck me was that he was, he had a terribly set expression on his face, totally unemotionless, cold eyes. I love watching people generally, and it is that struck me, that he seemed to have such a fixed, purposeful expression on his face, almost as though he was hypnotized in a way. There was never a flicker of a smile or of a recognition.
Cold, no life in his face, no expression in his face. If I am happy, I smile. When I'm angry, I look angry. This guy had just a cold face.
After leaving Huffman Aviation, Mohamed Atta spent the following months travelling around the country, covering thousands of kilometres, flying and driving rental cars, having face-to-face meetings with other members of the hijacked teams. It now appears that Atta was coordinating the task ahead.
In the 32 days that he rented a car, he put about 3,000 miles on altogether, which is a lot of miles. He was polite. He always paid his bill on time, returned the cars clean, never damaged or trashed the cars at all. I mean, he was a good customer in that respect.
Atta is also known to have travelled extensively between the United States and Europe, and within Europe itself, making him the suspected bridge between the hijackers and Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda. Atta and Al-Shehi also used their time to upgrade their aviation skills. They spent $1,500 at Sim Center Inc. in Miami, using flight simulators to get the feel of flying large commercial jets. You can key in your destination, in this case New York, and practice your manoeuvres. In these last months, Atta and Al-Shehi were rarely seen apart.
The close companionship for the Shah is really quite interesting. And sometimes one can see a circumstance where two faltering individuals use themselves to reassure themselves of the certainty and justice of their cause.
With 3 days left to go, the pair spent their last Friday night out on the town in Shuckham's Bar, Miami, with a friend. It's a cheap dive.
There were 3 gentlemen that came in that day. 2 gentlemen sat actually where you're sitting right now, and the third gentleman, Mohamed Atta, was sitting at the other end of the bar, and he was playing the video games.
Tony Amos was the manager on the night, and says as the evening progressed, Marwan Al-Shehi got agitated and drunk.
And he pulled out a wad of cash and he put it on the bar and he said, "I'm an airline pilot." So I just took it at face value. I mean, he had been drinking. I found out that him and the other gentleman, they had 5 rounds each. Mohamed Atta, he was just drinking cranberry juice. He'd get up once in a while, come over to who I found out this Marwan was his cousin or claimed to be related in some way, and he would maybe just say something in his ear and then go back to the other end of the bar and just continue playing the video game. And he did that for 4 hours.
That weekend, Mohamed Atta headed north to Portland, Maine. Al-Shehi returned their hire car on the Sunday afternoon.
In the glove box, I found a small piece of paper stuck to a bank ATM slip, and on that piece of paper was a name, address, and the date of birth of a young man that turned up to be on the manifest of the airplane that flew into the Pentagon.
On Monday, the 10th of September, Mohamed Atta checked into the Comfort Inn in South Portland for the last night of his life. It was a short drive from the airport, but before turning in, there were still matters to attend to. At 8:41, Atta was filmed at an ATM machine with Abdulaziz Al-Amiri, one of the hijack team who would be on the same plane as Atta. At 9:15, they were photographed buying petrol at the Jetport gas station a few blocks away. The last time Atta was caught on film that night was at a Walmart store, where he could be seen moving around the aisles for about 20 minutes. According to notes that the FBI say they found in Atta's bag, the hijackers had a 4-page set of instructions about how to get through their final night on Earth. Apart from chilling reminders like check that your knife is sharp, it tells the young men to pray and be happy, optimistic and calm, because you are heading for a deed that God loves and will accept. This will be the day, God willing, you will spend with the women of paradise. At 5:45 a.m. on the 11th of September, Atta passed through airport security in Portland on his way to Boston Airport. At Boston, he boarded American Airlines Flight 11.
Clearly, this was a very well-planned exercise and effectively carried out. So it suggests not madness so much as sort of a diabolical intent, sort of an evil genius.
It's not easy to plan your death in such cold blood. That is surhuman or superhuman. It's not human. But it proves how deep the frustration is. It proves that we have not been able to achieve a world where everybody feels at home in it. It proves that people play the game of death because they can't afford, because they don't get the possibility of playing the game of life.
But it would seem that he took on this cause as the most meaningful thing in his life, and it gave his life meaning and satisfaction. And as he planned to go to paradise along with his brothers on this mission, that was the fulfillment of his destiny.
What is disturbing is that there is so little in Mohamed Atta's early life that marks him out from thousands of other frustrated and embittered young men. And he went on to commit the worst terrorist crime in history. Even in that, he was not alone. It would be naive to think that this will be the end.